This is a quick video looking at two Sony VAIO laptops. This one on the left is an Intel Core 2 Duo T4300, and that is a 2.1 gigahertz processor. On the right we've got a slightly different processor, which is a T6600, but the actual processor speeds of both is very similar. So if I just show you what's happening in Task Manager on both of these, I'll be able to show you the specifications of both laptops. So this one is a Core 2 Duo T6600 at 2.2 gigahertz. This is a dual core CPU T4300 at 2.1 gigahertz, but there's not actually that much difference. They're both Penryn 3M Core 2 Duo here, and here Core Temp is saying Core 2 Duo. It's just Windows here is saying a different, saying dual core rather than Core 2 Duo. So they seem to be very similar processors. And CPU mark from Performance Test, there's very little difference. 979 from the 2.2 gigahertz, 924 from the 2.1 gigahertz. And these laptops both use DDR2 RAM. This one's got 3 gigabytes. This one's got 4 gigabytes. 2 sticks of RAM. I just don't have enough of the RAM to give this one 4 gigabytes. But so it's not a completely fair comparison. But this one on this side has ATI Radeon graphics. So that should give it a performance boost for things that require 3D graphics. So I'll just show you this here. Display adapter, ATI Mobility Radeon HD4500 series. Whereas this on the left has just the Intel built-in graphics, and I'll show you what that is over here. It is Intel 4 Series Express chipset family. So that's not going to give us the same 3D performance as this one. They're both running Windows 10. I'll just show you CPU Z on both of these, and they should have both been updated to the same level of Windows, and they both appear to be coping with the thermal temperatures. I think they're both, this one has definitely, I've just done the thermal paste on this one on this side, cleaned all the dust out, and I think this one, because of how it's behaving, that has been done on this one on the left as well. They've got quite nice bright screens. The model number is a Sony VAIO VGN NW20ZF on this side. On this side it's a VGN NW20EF on this side. And codename Penryn, both of these socket P478. There's not much to report here except this has got level 2 cache of 2 megabytes. This has got level 2 cache of 1 megabyte on the processor. The main board is Sony VAIO, and this is a GL40 chipset. This is a PM45 chipset. And they've both got the same BIOS date. This one has got PCI Express graphics interface memory. We'll move on to that. DDR2 running in dual channel on both of these, running at the same speeds, 400 megahertz. There you go, graphics difference here. And then if we go to bench, we can check the performance of the processors. We're getting a slightly quicker speed here, 372, and on here 345. And in single core performance, this is 189 and this is 173. So let's have a look at Quake and see what kind of performance we get when running the benchmark. That's not what I want. I think it's going to be in here. So I'll click this at the same time on both of them. Loud sound coming. And I'll go to setup and I'll change this to high quality, which is 800 by 600 and 32-bit, and click accept. And on this one, we have not been able to open the GL. Let's try this one more time. Nope. So looking at this, it looks like this could be a driver issue with older drivers for this graphics having support for more OpenGL, which would mean Quake should work. So I might need to roll back the drivers on this system to get Quake working. I've tried to install older drivers on this one. It's not gone well. The problem is these laptops were released when Windows 7 was around, so drivers for these older chipsets are often older versions for Windows XP or Windows 7, so going backwards is going to be quite tricky. But let's just run a time demo on this one so we can see how this performs. The speed of that is very good. It was 351 frames per second. So there is a benefit in going for a old laptop with built-in graphics such as ATI Radeon graphics, because you can actually run 3D games quite successfully even with an old Intel Core 2 Duo processor, and you're getting quite good results. Whereas this one with the Intel graphics is much more difficult. I'll see if I can get this back up and running. Okay, so we're back. Both of these laptops struggle with WebGL Aquarium. Here we are. This one doesn't even support WebGL, and this one gets a really low frame rate of about 1 frame per second. This one does do okay with this blob thing. This one also seems to be doing really well with this blob thing. Surprisingly, this one seems to be doing really well, 60 frames per second. This one 11 frames per second, so it's an odd setup there where that is happening. And if we go back to the aquarium, no, we can't get this aquarium to work, but it does work on this one. So interesting. Running the performance test on this one, this was able to get better 3D performance and do more of the tests compared to this one. But there we go, there are two laptops. Let's just have a look at a large web page and see what we get. And because we're using Brave, it's not come up with what I'm looking for. So Okay, so I'll click both at the same time. I'll wait a little bit for them to load. So that we've got the scroll bar at the side on both of these. And then I'll click at the same time once they both look kind of ready. This one doesn't look as ready, but here we go. We should have enough loaded that we can start scrolling. I did press them at the same time, but this one seemed to be a little bit slow, and perhaps that's because it's only got 3 GB of RAM compared to the one on the left with 4 GB of RAM. So we're scrolling to the bottom, and they both seem to be coping really well with this. And they got to kind of the end pretty much at the same time. Both performing really well with this. Obviously still loading images on some of this stuff. But yeah, can't really complain. The laptops work relatively well. If they do get clogged up with dust, then the temperatures will be a bit too high, or can be too high. Taking these apart, there are a lot of screws, but inside it's quite neatly arranged, and the bottom panel does come off quite easily without too much hassle, and you can get access to the thermal paste relatively easy. Just remember where all the screws go, because there are lots of different screws, and when you take the optical drive out, there are some screws under there. If you take the battery out, there are some screws under there as well. But yeah, these are quite nice laptops. Both seem to be working pretty well, and yeah, if you can get hold of DDR2 RAM fairly cheaply, then it's worth kind of upgrading these to 4 GB where possible. I think, let me just check, sometimes you can find it quite cheap at CEX. Although this is PC memory for desktops, so you'd need a 2 GB DDR2 SODIMM. And the search has come up with all sorts of other things. Okay, CEX call it 200 pin memory rather than calling it SODIMM, which is why it didn't come up. But here you go, £1. That's really cheap. And that would allow us to upgrade this one to 4 GB of RAM. So yeah, here we go. Quick, shortish video about 2 Sony laptops. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and check out my other channel.